Hey everybody, this is the Sliders Review, and I decided to combine both the Asian, Pacific Islander, and Black History Month together because it's dealing with that of both races. So I'm here today to talk about Rush Hour 3. So this movie came out in 2007, and it's the last movie to be produced. However, there are rumors that Rush Hour 4 are gonna get made. This movie put the kibosh on that of the franchise for a while. It did not perform that well. It had a budget of like $125 million to $140 million, but only made like $258 million back and stuff. There's a lot wrong with this movie. It's not entirely terrible, that's the thing. There are a lot of good moments in this movie. It's just there's a lot that feels off with this movie and stuff. The jokes don't land. There's barely any action. Like, the timeline doesn't make no kind of sense. We never get to see the events of what happened in New York. We get told what happened. And the jokes and the sexual nature of the movie has not aged well at all. Now, like I said before, all the Rush Hour movies have not aged well over time because of like the racial jokes and stuff like that. The first one had a lot of racial jokes towards like Asian people. The second movie just had some like offensive stuff here and there and some sexual offensive stuff like here and there, but not much. But if you had to say which one had the most offensive, outing, it's this one. Gone are the racial jokes, but now they're replaced with homophobic jokes, fat jokes, and actual racial slurs intended in a very nasty, nasty way. Then there is all the sexual nature of this movie and stuff, all the like sexualism and stuff. It was completely uncalled for. Like there are some scenes where James and Genevieve are gonna like do it. That's fine, but the part where Carter like goes into like a burlesque backstage, the dressing room, because he's looking for Genevieve, but then he gets distracted by all the women, and he pretends to be a gay man to like talk to them and stuff. Then when they all like, do we look fine? And he has them literally stripped completely naked except for a thong. And it's just like he's staring them down, and it's just kind of like, dude, like this would never fly in today's world and everything, because times have changed because of the Me Too movement and stuff. That's just one instance. Then there is the whole Sue Young thing, where her age does not make no sense, and it doesn't, like, when you actually stop and think about it, they say she's 21 online, but in actuality she's supposed to be 14 because the timeline doesn't make sense from the Rush Hour movies, and James is literally like, just turned on by her and stuff, which is creepy. I'll get into that a little bit later. Then there is all the cancellations. There's the director who got canceled because he got Me Too back in 2017. Then on top of that, there's an actor in here, Roman Polanski, and oh my God, when you read about this man, it is disgusting. He's the French cop who interrogated Carter and Lee. And when he hit them with the phone book, that's fine. But then he gave them, what was it? A prostate exam, not a prostate exam, but a cavity search where he put on that glove and he went up their butt. Now they don't show that part, they just talk about it. And I'm just kind of like, when you learn what this man has done in real life, it makes this scene even more cringe and everything. Because like in the 70s, he got not accused, but he got charged with drugging a 13-year-old and forcing himself on her and like assault and everything. Like he actually did her, and he went to jail for that. And something else happened. I can't remember what, but I think that's like the major one. And this man still works today. Like, he blames Harvey Weinstein for bringing up his old trial and all this stuff. Like, no, dude, you're nasty and everything. And the fact you was allowed to work on this movie is even more disgusting. And he still works today. Like, I don't understand how that man has not been canceled. But then when you find out the stuff that the director did, Brett Ratner, who's disgraced, then this all now makes sense. It makes sense for all the sexual references in the movie. The Sorry, my camera died. But it makes sense when you find out what Brett Ratner did, why all this perversion was in the movie, because they amped up Carter's perversion to like 1,000 in this movie. And they even gave some of it to Lee, who's never acted perverted in these movies. And it is Brett Ratner who made him say this stuff. Like, okay, when Carter, Genevieve, and Lee was in the hotel room, he's all like, we should order a movie, only like $9.99. Like, we should order like a dirty movie. That's what he said and stuff. And when you look at the bloopers, there's a lot more he says than just that, because they had to try out some stuff. One is, I like the one with the prison scene. I like the one with the shower scene. I like feet. I like hairy women. I like horses. And he's like, what does that mean? And he's all like, are you making me say dirty words again? And so then he said something else, and Chris Tucker's all like, man, why did you say that for? He's like, I don't know, Brett Ratner made me say that. Because, like, there's a writer in the movie, but the director gets to change stuff. So it's Brett Ratner who wrote, like, all this nasty, dirty, like, innuendo type stuff. And when you find out who this man is in real life, then it's kind of like, that makes sense as to why there was so much sexual cringe in this movie and stuff. There was just too much perversion and stuff. It has not aged well. And no, it's not me being a prude or nothing like that. It's just, it literally has not aged well at all. Like, so let's get into the whole Soo Young thing. One, she's been recast, which is messed up and everything, because I really like the original Soo Young. She was hilarious. They stripped away all her comedic elements and made her more down to earth and everything in this movie. She's also aged up. This is the part that is confusing, because, okay, from Rush Hour 1 to Rush Hour 3, only 9 years have passed. But in actuality of the movie, only 3 years have passed from the first and the third one. See, in the second movie, that takes place 2 weeks after the first. So it's still 1998 in the second movie. When you get to the third, they literally tell us twice that 3 years have passed by from the events ending in the second movie. And in that, at the end of that movie, they went to New York. And Isabella and Lee were dating, but they never done it. And so I don't believe for 9 years they never done it. I don't believe for 3 years they haven't done it, because he hasn't spoken to her in 3 years because Carter accidentally shot her in the neck. And so because of that, Lee is like pissed off at Carter. And so if only 3 years have passed from like the second movie to the third, Soo Young should technically be only 14 years old. But online they changed that to 21 because they don't want it to seem too creepy. Because they literally say she teaches at a Shaolin like karate class and everything. And I doubt a 14-year-old is going to teach there. So I always assume she might be in college. But when you do the math, she's only 14. So all the stuff that Carter kept saying about her is disgusting and everything. Because like he's all like, oh, I haven't saw Soo Young in like forever. We should go to the gift shop and buy her a teddy bear or a bra. And then like he's completely turned on by her and stuff. And it's weird because she's technically only 14 years old. And even if she was 21, it's still creepy because he knew her when she was 11 years old. And this is the second time he's seen her. So no matter what, it's a creepy scene. Like, do you see what I'm saying? And then like with the racism and stuff, like with the other movies, it was done for like humor and jokes and all this and that, but it was still racist, but it was done in a humorous way. And this time it's not done in a humorous way. Now, the stuff involving Sister Agnes was funny, but the entire interrogation scene of the Chinese Frenchman, that was just disgusting, because in French, he's saying all these slurs, like he calls Carter the N-word like twice, then I think he calls Lee the C-word, and then calls him the F-word, homophobic slur and everything. And he did it with like malice and stuff. So it's like, there's blatant real racism this time as opposed to just in a joking kind of manner. I don't get that. Like, this movie just literally has not aged well. And so you can't even say it's a product of its time, because it's really not. Now, a product of its time that has not aged well is like, you know, the fat joke with that one lady in the beginning of the movie played by Aerosmith's daughter. I forget her name. And, you know, then there's like, you know, that's like, you know, because, you know, that's fat shaming. That hasn't aged well, but it was a product of its time. What was funny then is not funny now. Then there's the whole Genevieve thing when she takes off her wig and, you know, Carter thinks he made out with a man. Once again, you know, that has not aged well, but it was a product of its time. So it was funny back then, but it's not funny now and everything. And so this movie just has it's a good movie that just really has not aged well. It didn't hit the marks it needed to. Another problem with this movie is that Jackie doesn't do martial arts at all in this movie. Like, he does his, like, you know, dangerous stunt work, and he does more of it in this movie than he has in the other movies. So that was fun to see. But he doesn't fight in hand-to-hand combat in this movie at all. And I don't know why. The only time he fights in this movie is when, like, he's fighting Kenji, when he's fighting Kenji with the swords. That's literally it. He don't throw a kick. He don't throw a punch. It's like none of that. Instead, it's Carter doing all the hand-to-hand combat, because he said he's been studying martial arts for 3 years. And yeah, it's cool to see him do. He does more of the stuff than Jackie does. Like, he does like a bit more of, like, you know, the stunts, and he does like the action. But it's mostly hand-to-hand punching, grounded. He doesn't really throw no kicks because he can't do that. And so, like I said before, in the second movie, he got to do more action, which is cool because you want to see Carter do that. But it's like, you want to see Jackie do martial arts. And I don't know why. Maybe he was injured. I don't know. Maybe he got too old. I don't know. Because there is one stunt that he literally busts his face in this movie. It's on the blooper and everything. So it's like, it's weird because Jackie's not being Jackie, and Chris is a bit more tamer in this movie than he was in the first. Like I said, in the first one, he was just like wild and everything. But in every other movie, they keep taming him, and it just doesn't feel the same as like the first. Now, I believe this should have been the fourth movie instead of the third. We should have saw the events that happened in the third movie and stuff. Not the third movie, but we should have saw the events that happened in New York. Hearing about how Isabella got shot in the neck, that's one thing, but you know, you want to see what happened in New York. I was really hoping to see all that, you know. But I am glad they went to Paris, because that was a nice, like, you know, feel. However, this is one real weird, odd little thing. This movie doesn't feel like a Rush Hour movie. It feels like a James Bond movie, but without the gadgets and stuff. This has a really huge spy element feel to this movie that the other movies had like a touch of, but this one went full on like spy James Bond movie. There's the good Bond girl. There's the bad Bond girl. You know, they're in the casino again and everything. They're wearing fancy suits again and everything. And it's like all this espionage and, like, you know, people who you think are good and they turn out to be bad and everything. And so, like, it really feels like a spy thriller, which it will be fine. But it's like when you change that formula up, it just doesn't feel the same. they do hit some of the same tropes they hit last time. Like, oh, there's a white guy and he's allies with this Asian gang. They end up in a casino. Both guys bicker with each other for different reasons and stuff. That's fine, because that what makes Rush Hour, and you don't want to change too much. But then when you once again we do the whole trope of, oh, the white dude's like really evil and he works with the gang and this and that, and you know, here's a conceit on thing, and it's kind of like, you don't have to keep going back to that. Also, once again, the movie is about Lee in his past. Somebody who's close to Lee. The whole movie revolves around that. We've seen that in the last two movies. This movie should have focused on Carter. We always hear his backstory, but we never really get to see it. We never get to see no people from like his past, except for his cousin. Because now it turns out Carter has a brother, which we never knew about. And we only know about it because we find out Lee has an adoptive brother. And it's just like, that's just felt tacked on and everything. This movie should have been about Carter, something that happened in his past, and you know, this gang, not an Asian gang this time, but like a street thug black gang. They should have been the main focus of the movie, and even bring back his cousin Luke from the first movie, who wore that red suit, because like that could have been like, instead of Kenji, it could have been Luke and everything doing all this bad stuff, and Carter trying to get him out of it, you know, and something like that. Or it could have been Kenny from the second movie, a friend of his, who is his informant and stuff. And it would have changed the dynamic of the movie, where it didn't feel like they're just recycling the same stuff over and over again. Now, some good things is the character development. Lee is extremely pissed off in this movie. But his pissed offness does bring the tone down of the movie, because he's pissed at Carter for shooting Isabella in the neck. But then once he sees Kenji, he's just pissed off about that. Even telling Carter to the point, you're not my brother and everything, so stop calling me that. And it's like, wow, Lee is being really mean to him, but not in a funny way, in a very dramatic way. This movie feels more like a drama and everything, as opposed to a comedy action movie. And, you know, it was a nice scene where, like, you know, when those two go their separate ways and everything, because Lee was being really rude to him, that these two have bonded so much that they take on their own like customs and stuff. Like, you see Carter getting Chinese food, you see Lee getting soul food, you see Lee watching like a black movie and everything, and you know, you see James listening to like the Beach Boys and stuff. It shows that brotherly bond they have. Only problem is, this would have been better if it was the fourth movie, and then we would have got that third movie where they bond even more. Because in the first movie they were just adversaries. In the second movie they was friends, but they still bickered a lot. And the third movie would have been that nice closure movie where they was like bonding. And then this fourth movie could have had this big dramatic thing where they like fall apart. This really should have been the fourth movie and everything. And so, you know, but this is a callback to the first movie. Like, council member Han comes back, Sue Lee comes back. Oh, and dude, I forgot to mention this. Philip Baker Hill, may he rest in peace. He was Carter's, like, you know, boss in the first movie. He makes a small role in this movie, and like, he passed away. I forgot to mention that and everything. And because like these movies, somebody's always passing away. All three movies have had people passed away. Like, it's insane. Oh, also, I want to say, like, the actress who was next to Aerosmith's daughter, I forget her name, is Sarah Shaw or something like that. Well, she played Shaw on Person of Interest. Just like with Maggie Q, I can't believe her talent was wasted in this movie. She was just there for comedic relief. But if you ever watched her in Person of Interest, you know she could have played like a cop or a detective or the bad girl in this movie. She is that good. He always does this with his stars. Like, he'll get somebody really famous who can like match these two in hand-to-hand combat, only to waste their talent. So like, we find out that Carter's been demoted to like being a traffic cop and everything, and because of something that happened like a couple of months ago, whatever. So anyway, he stops these two women and everything, and then he hits them like always. And then we see council member Han, an assassination attempt gone wrong. So he's in the hospital now. Lee chases after the bad guy, turns out to be Kenji. Kenji is his adopted brother who he hasn't seen in forever. His brother was adopted from Japan and ran into the wrong crowd in China and then just turned bad. We've never heard of this dude until now. So the moment Lee sees Carter, he just wants nothing to do with him and everything because of the whole Kenji thing, and he's still mad about the whole Isabella thing. After that, they meet Soo Young and everything, and they have a shootout with like the bad guys, and then there's the interrogation scene with the nun lady, and then they go to where Soo Young's locker is in her dojo. Yes, that was a hilarious scene with the old man and the giant dude and everything, but some of that didn't come off like funny. Like, it's weird. Even some of the things that were really funny, it's like they missed the mark and it didn't feel funny for some reason. It just, I don't know, jokes just didn't really land this time. Like, the tone was just off and everything. So, like, eventually they go to like this one dude's place who, he's played by Max von Sydow and everything, Vernon. Ah, may he rest in peace too. He passed away. And so he's this French consulate type dude, and they take Soo Young there to be protected, but then his car like explodes and stuff. So they realize they need to go to France because a lot of things are pointing to that way with this whole Shai Shin list and everything. Now, Shai Shin, people think is a person, but it turns out to be a list for this gang. It has all the heads of all the like gang leaders and stuff like that. And it's passed down from woman to woman and everything. So it leads them to Genevieve. Boy, oh my God, this movie introduced me to her. Naomi, Lee Noir and everything. Oh my God, dude. She's like this French model actress type person. She is gorgeous and everything. Like, oh my God. So she wants nothing to do with them, and they don't know she's Shai Shin and everything. But turns out Kenji wants her dead, and we find out why. She was gonna give the list to council member Han. That's what caused him to get like shot and everything. So they had to help her and stuff. Now, after all this, like, there's a scene where they have to get her out the burlesque thing. So Carter's trying to get her out while Lee is on a swing set singing and floating in the air, which is so un-Lee-like. Now, one of the best installments of this movie is George. Oh my God, George was hilarious. For whatever reason, he hates Americans. He's French. He thinks Americans are always starting wars. They kill for no reason. He doesn't want nothing to do with Americans. But then once he gets in the chase scene because of the guys, he loves the thrill of the action and pretends like he's a spy. And so he was the best part of this movie. The only problem is with the last part when he killed the bad guy. It's like, that should have been like, Soo Young doing that or something like that, because she was in Paris because they kidnapped her and stuff. And so after a really cool battle, a sword battle with like Kenji and like Lee and everything, and you have Carter fighting the bad guys off while Soo Young is dangling from this tower. That was a really cool action scene and some really cool stunt work. And then, oh my God, the dragon lady Jasmine with the throwing knives, she was cool. She was a cool like Bond girl type, But then the movie ended, in my opinion, near perfect because, like I said, George killed the French consulate dude, Verdun and everything. That should have been Soo Young because he kidnapped Soo Young and brought her to Paris and all this other stuff. But then the movie ended perfectly when they punched out the French cop, who's just a disgusting man in real life. And then they walked out to war and everything. And then, it goes to like the bloopers. That would have been a perfect way to end the movie if it would have been the fourth movie and stuff. Now, because this movie didn't do well, they created a television show on CBS. I've already said the television show sucked. These guys are no Chris Tucker and no Jackie Chan, which is a hard, shoes to fill. And I feel bad, because, they got compared to legends and everything, and they just couldn't, keep up with them. But now it has been reported that Rush Hour 4 is in the developmental stage. Nothing's been filmed yet. They're probably still writing the script. So after all these years, they're gonna make another movie. Which now it just seems like it's way too late to make a movie. Thankfully, Brett Ratner will no longer direct, but, will this movie be any good? It's been over, oh my God, it's been a long time. It's been over a decade and a half since, the third movie and stuff. And not to mention that, but it's the guys are much older. Are they gonna still be able to, fight and everything? Not to mention now it's depressing knowing that Jackie Chan hates every Rush Hour movie. And he literally said, just pay me the money and I'll do it. So it's literally he's just doing this money, he's doing this movie for a paycheck. So it's it sucks when his heart's not in it. So then it's kind of wash your mind and everything, you know what I'm saying? But like I said before, he does do something good with the money. He uses it to fund his Chinese movies and stuff. It would be really cool to see Chris Tucker back in the movie because, after Rush Hour 3, he disappeared for 4 or 5 years only to come back. But he hasn't really done nothing since. And, and so it would be cool to see him again. But it's just it's been too long, you know what I'm saying? And you know how movies are. When it's been over a decade and a half and they try to bring back the old crew, it's just kind of that magic just ends up getting lost and everything.